Now, Governor Pence of Indiana refuses to state whether the law in Indiana allows for discrimination of gay people in Indiana, let alone anyone else that religious people object to. Okay. Now, the reality is that's exactly what the law does. In fact, let me quote Indiana's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. The new law allows business owners to refuse to do something when it places a substantial burden on their religious beliefs. So they can say, hey, you want a cake for your gay wedding? Well, that's a substantial burden on my religious beliefs to bake you that cake. So I'm going to deny you service. That's the whole point of the law, right? Now, if you're unclear on that, not just the governor, but other legislators in the state of Indiana want to pretend otherwise. But some of them are going to accidentally admit that that is the case. So first we go to David Long. He says, religious freedom and the right to be free from discrimination can coexist together. Well, yes and no. I mean, if your idea of religious freedom is I want to go home and pray there with my family, of course I can coexist without discrimination. If your idea is to help the needy, the poor, etc., of course I can coexist. But if your idea of religious freedom is to discriminate against other Americans, then it cannot coexist. And in fact, your law says that you're going to favor one over the other. You're going to favor the ability to discriminate based on religion over having a law that does not discriminate. So you're willing to do that. You're willing to make that choice. Brian Bosma, the state house speaker, ironically says, what we had hoped for was a message of inclusion. Well, in a very funny way of showing that by doing a bill that does the exact opposite. Now, these guys are going to be at a press conference, and they're going to get asked a question about not just this bill, but other bills that already exist in Indiana. Wait till you see their answer. This is awesome.
You guys have said repeatedly that we shouldn't be able to discriminate against anyone, but if you just ignore the existence of this law, can't we already do that now? Can't so-and-so in Richmond put a sign up and say, no gays allowed? That's not against the law, correct?
It would depend on if you were in a community that had a human rights ordinance, that wouldn't be the case.
But most of the state does not have this, correct?
That's correct.
So wait a minute. You already could discriminate against gays in Indiana, and they just admitted it. So are you guys willing to do an anti-discrimination law in Indiana? No way. Governor Pence says no way. These guys say no way. No, they'd like to be able to discriminate in 18 different ways. The overwhelming majority of the counties in Indiana have no such law that forbids discrimination. So yes, the overwhelming majority of the counties in Indiana allow you to discriminate against gays in many different ways. Nonetheless, we have the second part of the answer.
I think it's terribly unfair what's being said about our state. It's a great state, great people. We don't support discrimination against anyone in this state, but unfortunately some people are suggesting that for whatever reason.
The reason is the bill you just passed. That's why. We didn't make it up. You guys passed the bill. Now, this whole defense of by definition, it must not be a bad bill or allow discrimination because the state of Indiana is so wonderful. Okay. It's not really a convincing argument. In fact, now let's go to what Republican Representative Bruce Borders had said while the bill was being passed. He said, God's word tells us to do all the things unto the Lord. If we truly are doing things unto the Lord, our businesses can be a church or sanctuary. People deserve protection in their businesses as well, not just on Sunday morning. The point there is crystal clear, which is that, yes, your business can discriminate. All right, finally we go to something Glad has pointed out here, which I think is really interesting and point well made. It's Mike Pence, when he was signing the bill into law, had a bunch of people behind him. Here, let's show that picture. And these are the people who obviously support the law. That's why the governor invited them to this signing in ceremony. Now, he refused to identify the lobbyists that were in the picture. I wonder if he's trying to hide something. Well, it turns out the lobbyists there are Micah Clark, Kurt Smith, and Eric Miller, the three that are circled by Glad in that picture, including Kurt Smith, who's like, hey, don't forget about me. I'm right here. I'm in the back. I'm in the back. Oh, God, I'm really interested. I really want to discriminate, too. So let's tell you what these guys believe in. Eric Miller has said in the past that claims banning same-sex marriages and civil unions will prove to be the greatest moral battle of this generation. So now, wait, if this isn't to discriminate against gay people, why did you bring in Eric Miller, who thinks this is the greatest battle of our generation? All right, it gets better. Now we go to Micah Clark. Now this is a guy who was against the Boy Scouts bringing in gay kids, as he wanted to discriminate against gay kids and say, no, 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 we want just straight kids in the Boy Scouts. And on that issue, he said this: what did Christ say about harming the least of these? He said it would be better to have a millstone tied around your neck and be thrown in the sea on the day of judgment than to cause a child to stumble into sin. And if we're going to support organizations telling kids that homosexuality is okay, which is actually treatable, changeable, you don't have to be homosexual, but if you are, you're at significantly higher risk of mental harm and physical harm and emotional harm and spiritual harm. We can't be a part of that. So he's saying homosexuality is basically something that can be changed, and it will cause you great harm, and we can't have it. He'd rather have a millstone tied around his neck than allow the gay kids into the Boy Scouts. And then finally, we go to our friend Kurt Smith, the guy who was in the background going, me too, me too, me too. What did he have to say about gays? Well, he refers to the details surrounding Matthew Shepard's tragic murder as gay activist propaganda. And he claims the real takeaway from the gay man's brutal murder is that marriage should be strengthened. Matthew Shepard was a young guy who was killed for being gay in most horrific situations, beaten to death, left to die. And this guy says, nah, that was just gay rights propaganda. These are the kind of loathsome people that were at the signing ceremony, so proud that they finally get to discriminate against gays. And then Mike Pence goes on TV and the rest of the legislators have press conferences where they talk about, oh, I don't know how anybody got the idea that this was to discriminate against gays. Golly gee, we had no such intention. Total and utter liars. That was exactly their intent.